Because what you're about to hear is not just a message, it's something you were never meant to ignore. Suspenseful. And the longer you delay it, the louder it becomes inside you. There is a message waiting for you, but it's not coming from where you think. It's coming from a place within you that has been trying to speak for a very long time. Curious, you believe this message is from your person, someone outside of you. But what if I told you that this person is only a mirror, a reflection of something buried deep in your psyche, something unfinished, something unresolved, the urgency you feel, that tension in your chest, that constant pull toward them. It is not random. It is a signal that something within you is seeking recognition, because the human mind does not chase people. It chases meaning, and when meaning is hidden, it disguises itself as attachment, longing, or even obsession, thoughtful. So the question is not, what are they trying to tell you? The real question is, what part of you is trying to be heard through them? When we say the message is not external but comes from within, it challenges the way most people naturally think. You're used to believing that meaning comes from other people's words, actions, or attention. But in reality, what feels like a message from someone else is often something already alive inside you, trying to reach your awareness. It shows up through emotions first, not logic. A sudden pull towards someone, a feeling you can't shake, or a thought that keeps repeating itself. These are not random. They are signals. The mind has layers, and not everything you feel is immediately visible to you. There are parts of you that hold memories, desires, fears, and even truths you once avoided. These don't disappear just because you ignore them. Instead, they wait, and when the time is right, they start expressing themselves in indirect ways. One of the most common ways is through other people. You start attaching meaning to someone, believing they hold something important for you, when in fact they are only triggering something that already exists inside you. This is why the feeling seems so urgent. It's not because the other person is sending you something powerful. It's because something within you has reached a point where it can no longer stay hidden. It needs your attention. It needs to be understood. And until you turn inward and actually listen, the feeling won't settle. It will keep coming back in different forms, sometimes stronger than before. What makes this difficult is that looking within requires honesty. It asks you to question your own patterns instead of focusing on someone else's behavior. That can feel uncomfortable at first because it removes the illusion that the answer is outside. But once you begin to notice your own reactions, your own emotional triggers, things start to become clearer. You begin to realize that the message was never about decoding someone else. It was about understanding yourself on a deeper level. And when you do that, the urgency fades, not because the situation changed, but because you finally heard what was always trying to reach you. When we say the urgency is psychological rather than physical, it means the pressure you feel is not coming from something happening in the outside world, but from something building inside your mind. There is no real deadline, no immediate consequence if you don't act right now, yet it feels like there is. That sense of, I need to know, or I need to respond, or I can't ignore this, comes from an inner tension, not an external demand. This kind of urgency often feels very real in the body. You might notice restlessness, overthinking, or a constant pull to check, think, or replay moments. It can feel like something important is slipping away if you don't act. But if you step back for a moment, you'll see that nothing concrete is actually happening. The urgency exists in your interpretation, not in the situation itself. The mind creates this pressure when there is something unresolved. It could be confusion, emotional attachment, or a need for clarity that hasn't been met. Instead of sitting with that uncertainty, the mind tries to escape it by creating a sense of urgency. It convinces you that quick action will bring relief, that if you just figure it out, reach out, or get an answer, the feeling will go away. But the truth is, acting on that urgency doesn't always resolve it. Sometimes it just feeds the cycle. You respond, you think more, you analyze more, and the feeling continues. That's because the root isn't outside. It's the discomfort of not having control or certainty. And the mind struggles with that, so it pushes you to do something, anything, to reduce that discomfort. When you start recognizing this, you begin to separate what's real from what's being created internally. You can pause and ask yourself whether there is an actual need to act or if it's just a feeling pushing you. That pause changes everything. It gives you space to respond instead of react. Over time, you notice that the urgency loses its grip when you stop treating it as something you must obey. It becomes something you can observe, understand, and move through without letting it control your decisions. When we say that the person represents a projection, it means you are not only seeing them as they are, but also as your mind interprets them through your own experiences. You are adding meaning to who they are based on what you feel, what you've been through, and what you might be missing within yourself. This happens naturally, often without you realizing it. For example, you might feel drawn to someone and believe it's because of something special about them. And while they may have qualities that genuinely attract you, the intensity of that feeling usually comes from something deeper. It could be a need for connection, a desire to feel understood, or even a part of yourself that you haven't fully accepted yet. Instead of recognizing it within, your mind places it onto them. This is why sometimes people seem more important in your thoughts than they are in reality. You start to see them as the answer to a feeling you can't quite explain. You might think they complete something in you, or that they hold a kind of clarity or emotional fulfillment that you've been searching for. But what's really happening is that they are reflecting something back to you. The challenge is that projections can blur your perception. You may overlook who the person actually is and focus more on what they represent to you. This can create confusion, especially if their actions don't match the image you've built in your mind. It can feel like mixed signals, when in reality, part of that confusion is coming from within. Becoming aware of this doesn't mean your feelings are wrong. It just means there's more to understand. When you start to question why you feel the way you do, instead of only focusing on the other person, you begin to see patterns. You notice what you're drawn to, what affects you deeply, and what keeps repeating. That awareness helps you separate the real person from the meaning you've attached to them. And as you do that, your perspective becomes clearer, more grounded, and less driven by assumptions you didn't even realize you were making. When you ignore an inner message, it doesn't simply disappear. It tends to build pressure over time. At first, it might show up as a small feeling, something easy to brush off. You distract yourself, stay busy, or tell yourself it's not important. But the mind doesn't work like that. What is left unresolved doesn't fade. It lingers in the background and slowly becomes stronger. This is where inner conflict begins to grow. On the surface, you may try to move forward as if everything is fine. But underneath, there's a part of you that keeps pulling your attention back. It might show up as overthinking, emotional reactions that feel out of proportion, or a sense that something is just not settled. You may not even connect it to the message you ignored, but it's all linked. The reason this happens is because the mind seeks clarity and balance. When something important is left unacknowledged, it creates a kind of tension between what you are aware of and what you are avoiding. That tension doesn't stay quiet. It finds ways to express itself, sometimes in subtle ways, sometimes in ways that are harder to ignore. You might notice repeating patterns, similar situations, similar emotions, even similar types of people entering your life. It can feel like coincidence, but often it's the mind trying to bring your attention back to the same unresolved point. Until it is understood, it tends to repeat. Ignoring it can also make your reaction stronger over time. What once felt manageable may start to feel overwhelming. Small triggers can create bigger responses because they are connected to something deeper that hasn't been addressed. It's not just about the moment, it's about everything that has been building beneath it. When you begin to face what you've been avoiding, even in small ways, that tension starts to ease. You don't have to figure everything out at once. Just acknowledging that something is there makes a difference. It shifts you from resisting it to understanding it, and that alone begins to reduce the conflict that has been quietly growing inside you. The message carries truth that the conscious mind often avoids because it challenges the stories we tell ourselves. We like to believe that life is simple, that people behave a certain way, and that our feelings are straightforward, but the deeper messages coming from within don't fit neatly into these assumptions. They often reveal something uncomfortable, something we may not want to face. That's why they feel urgent and persistent. They are pushing us to see what we've been ignoring. This truth isn't always obvious. It can be hidden in feelings of discomfort, anxiety, or even fascination with someone or something. The conscious mind prefers clarity and control, so it tries to rationalize, explain, or dismiss these signals. But the inner message doesn't care about your explanations. It will keep coming in its own ways until you pay attention. Often it appears as tension, as repeated patterns, or as intense emotions that seem to come out of nowhere. These are all attempts to make the truth visible, to get your attention in a way the mind cannot ignore. Ignoring this truth can make life feel heavier. You might find yourself repeating mistakes, feeling stuck in certain emotions, or getting drawn to situations that mirror the unresolved part of yourself. The message is persistent because it carries something essential for your growth. It points to areas in your life that require honesty, courage, and reflection. It's not punishment. It's an invitation to confront what's real, even when it's uncomfortable. Facing this truth takes humility. It requires recognizing that some of the answers you are looking for are not outside, but within. The intensity of emotions, the urge to act, or the feeling of urgency is a way your inner world is signaling that something in your life needs acknowledgement. Listening doesn't mean overthinking or obsessing. It means observing your reactions, noticing your patterns, and reflecting on what your feelings reveal about your inner state. When you finally allow yourself to face this truth, a shift happens. What once felt chaotic begins to make sense, and the urgency eases. The message is no longer a burden because it has been acknowledged, understood, and integrated into your awareness. It becomes a guide, not a source of stress, helping you navigate life with clarity and presence. Integration of the message is what transforms it from a source of tension into a path for growth. The mind often resists what it does not understand, so when a message comes through, something urgent, emotional, or difficult, it can feel like an intrusion. The first instinct is usually to ignore it, push it away, or try to explain it away. But the truth is, until it is integrated, it continues to surface in different forms, often repeating itself until you finally face it. Integration doesn't mean forcing an immediate solution or changing your life overnight. It means recognizing the message, understanding what it is trying to show you, and accepting that this is a part of your inner experience. When you allow yourself to feel what the message is pointing to, whether it's longing, fear, desire, or unresolved emotion, you are acknowledging that this aspect of yourself exists. That acknowledgement is the first step toward transformation. Many people fear integration because it requires looking at parts of themselves they've avoided. It can feel uncomfortable to confront traits, desires or feelings that don't fit the image of who they think they should be. Yet avoiding them only strengthens their hold. The mind and heart continue to bring these messages forward, sometimes disguised as obsession, irritation, or longing, until they are finally understood. Integration, in contrast, turns this energy into clarity rather than chaos. The process also involves reflection, observing your patterns, noticing what triggers intense emotions, and questioning why certain situations or people provoke strong reactions helps you connect the message to your own inner world. Once you see the connection, it stops feeling like something happening to you from the outside and starts to feel like an opportunity to understand yourself better. When you fully integrate a message, it no longer demands attention in the same urgent way. The feeling of pressure eases because you have acknowledged the part of yourself that was trying to speak. You begin to act with greater awareness, make decisions aligned with your inner truth, and navigate relationships without being unconsciously driven by unresolved needs. Integration is what turns what once felt like an urgent external call into a quiet inner guidance, helping you live more intentionally and authentically. In the end, the message you feel so urgently isn't really about anyone else. It's about parts of yourself that need attention, understanding, and acknowledgement. The pull, the tension, the restlessness you experience, they are all signs pointing inward, asking you to see what has been hidden or ignored. By facing it, by listening to it without judgment, you start to understand your own emotions, your patterns, and your desires more clearly. When you allow yourself to do this work, the urgency begins to ease. What once felt like pressure becomes clarity. You start to recognize the difference between what belongs to you and what belongs to projections, between what is real and what is imagined. And in that space of understanding, you find a sense of peace that doesn't depend on anyone else, because you've connected with your own truth. The real message has always been within you. It asks only that you pause, reflect, and integrate what you feel. That's how growth happens. That's how you stop chasing answers outside yourself and start finding them inside. When you do this, you not only understand yourself better, but you also navigate life with more awareness, calm, and confidence. So, the next time you feel that pull, that urgency, remember, it's not about them. It's about you waking up to your own inner truth. It's your chance to listen, reflect, and finally understand what your mind and heart have been trying to tell you all along.